So guys, this is a really quick video today. All morning I've kind of had on my mind that I wanted to do a very quick video about women and ADHD, just because I have been having some conversations about adult women getting the diagnosis, and also just seeing a few people online this morning expressing the hidden side of it for them and how people don't fully understand. So I was kind of going to jump on today around that anyway, and then I've seen the BBC report about misdiagnoses. A diagnosis for any neurodistinction cannot happen in 45 minutes. A screening can, to say the likelihood of it being there, but there has to be some more focusing around what it means for your life, the prevalence of the things that you're recording, and the doctor is asking. There's got to be more input around the questions for it to be a firm diagnosis. If anybody's ever worked with me around screening, I do screening because it gives you a high or low probability of you being neurodistinct in some way, and that's what we should be looking for. But I am digressing a little bit, and I just wanted to say is if any adults are going for a diagnosis around ADHD or neurodistinction, please go for a diagnosis, not a screening. Also, a diagnosis should be focused on not just what's happening for you now, but your history. It should be deeper in your history, and hopefully if you've got family around you, you can access that information. Those questions should be posed to others, because our norm is our norm. My parents would be able to tell me things about my childhood I wouldn't remember or see in a certain way. They would have seen it in a different way. And again, if anybody's worked with me, I'd always ask, what have people said to you about this area of your life? What have people said to you about this area of your life? Because that's getting you to see it from the perspective of others, which is not always simple to do. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that a diagnosis is not a simple task, and especially if that's going to lead to medication. And this is where I talk about now women and ADHD. There's been a lot of women coming my way saying, I think I may have ADHD, and may well be the case. It may well be the case, but I want women in particular to take these two things into consideration, and men, you'll know which one you should be taking into consideration when you hear the two. So when you are going for an ADHD diagnosis, your practitioner needs to be aware of two things: hormones, life cycle, and where you are, women. If you're perimenopausal or menopausal, you can have some factors, some things in your world now that may present like ADHD, i.e. the brain fog, the inattention, the organisation, the forgetfulness. Those elements are more focused in the later life for some women because of the perimenopause and the menopause, which can also be elements and factors in ADHD. Also, be aware that all of our attention is changing at the moment because of things like this, social media. And so, if you are an adult woman going for a diagnosis, your history matters. How you've managed in the past matters. Your reflection on your history matters. Have I always found it really difficult to focus? Has this also always been a kind of a challenge? Is it just becoming more of a challenge now? You have to be aware of your history. So that's the one thing that I want women to recognise. The second thing for anybody going for a diagnosis is that trauma is also can be very reflective in a lot of the neurodistinctions. Trauma changes our brains, especially if our trauma is early on in life, and it can then show up as ADHD or autism. And so if you again are going to a practitioner for a diagnosis, they need to be well trauma informed. They need to be asking you about potential traumas in your life, the approaches you've had, the support you've had, the onset of the things that you're sharing with them. Diagnosis should not happen in a very small silo. It's actually quite a dangerous thing, especially if it's going to lead to medication. Again, adults, if you get a diagnosis of ADHD, because that's the one that leads to to medication, can you please kind of research around what the medication is for, talk to other adults on the medication, understand, because they can trigger a lot of things mentally and mental health wise, for anyone, not just for adults. But actually, if it is a misdiagnosis as an adult, you might find that you have some mental health needs if you go onto the medication. So guys, this message was playing on my mind all morning. Then I've just seen a report from the BBC about how misdiagnosis is happening for people, and I thought that I had to share it with you. Being neurodistinct is not a problem. It's how it's managed and how you manage that experience for your world. A diagnosis is helpful when your life is being impacted, overly impacted, by the potential symptomology of a neurodistinction. It shouldn't just be, I'm having this kind of concern, I really want to figure out if this is the reason, and go straight for a diagnosis. Please be cautious who you work with around diagnosing your neurodistinction. Talk to people, get screenings, get other things in place, but just be careful. There's a lot going on out there at the moment, and because it is such a big conversation, there's lots of areas developing. Be careful. That's just my little warning.